Oh boy, did somebody say WordPress Echo Chamber? You know, I've got to make a comment on that. Web Squadron, Imran Siddiq from, the Web Squadron YouTube channel, put out a video a couple days ago, last week, with the title, Some WordPress Creators Always Get the Love, which was sort of responded to by Remkus de Vries, who we've had on the show before. I've been on his podcast. He wrote a blog post in response to it, the fine line between editorial focus and echo chambers in WordPress, sort of highlighting his point of view as a WordPress creator. I'll jump into my thoughts as a WordPress content creator in the unfiltered approach I normally do whenever it comes to talking about WordPress media. I might be a little bit more nuanced and delicate with some softer gloves when it comes to other topics in WordPress, but when it comes to content creation, I sure do have a lot of opinions as somebody who's done it for 17 years and who has really been trying to, make it a business, a different kind of business, the non-affiliate link business in the last few years with the WP Minute publication and YouTube channel. So, let me get the harsh criticism out of the way. By the way, welcome to the Matt Report. We're not talking about AI today. Here's the AI news. Claude's going up in price. Claude Code's going up in price now with weekly limits, and I'm sure they'll introduce another tier of payment, probably around $1,000 a month if you don't want limits. Anyway, back to WordPress. Okay, so with the gloves off, the sort of unfiltered feedback, and as somebody who has done this for a while and who has really focused on a particular lane in WordPress, which is the WordPress business side of it, both like what's happening in the economy of WordPress, acquisitions, investments, new products, new companies, agencies, freelancers, pay rates, getting clients, like that kind of thing. But much more from like the analytical and sharing story side of it, not really trying to like, here's how you can run your WordPress agency and make $5 million a year. Like, it's not that angle. I mean, those of you that know me, and I don't often cover it that way. So I've chosen a particular lane, which is largely kept the publication small or the audience small. I do think there's only 10,000 English-speaking people in WordPress that care about like the real inside baseball of WordPress, both community, economy, like this WP engine stuff. I think there's a cap to that, right? The people actually care what's happening with WordPress. And then you get somebody like Imran from Web Squadron. I mean, he has 143,000 subscribers. He's put out 2.6 thousand videos to get to that point. It's hard for me as a veteran WordPress creator and one that has, if I say limit myself, it's a bit of an excuse, but I've picked a very fine focus. I've only got 19,000 subscribers on YouTube, 291 videos. So, he's almost 10xing me on the amount of videos he's put out and, 5 or 6x me on the subscriber count. But I don't really see, like, if you have that many subscribers, I find it hard to agree with, like, the gatekeeping and holding other creators back. In fact, I remember when Imran and Paul Charlton, who's been a guest on the show, did a creator roundtable. They were doing a YouTube creator roundtable, and I threw my hat into the ring, like, hey, if you guys ever need, an opinion from my side, happy to join in. Never got an invite. Years ago, I feel like Imran felt in his video, where it was like, why isn't anybody paying attention to me? Like, I'm doing good work too. I'm putting out stuff that matters as well. And what I've found is some solace isn't the right word. Comfort's not the right word. Like, I've been able to deal with it on an emotional level by understanding, like, I have my audience. I serve my audience well, in my opinion. I'm constantly trying to evolve and to push into new areas, and you kind of see that with the YouTube channel. Like, I'm really interested in AI stuff, and I'm trying to find this like middle ground of talking about AI, talking about WordPress. 6.9 roadmap came out. Probably going to do a video about that. It's the most exciting thing I've heard from like the core experience of WordPress in almost a year, if not a year. And I'm really excited to dive into that stuff. So I find it hard to say that he's feeling the pressures of like an echo chamber when he has such, a size of that audience. And Remkus sort of says, in his piece that, he's making an editorial decision to say, I'm not, since Imran covers a lot of Elementor stuff, that he doesn't cover Elementor stuff and page builder stuff. And his focus is on, what I might label as like hardcore developers and performance and security people. This is why Remkus doesn't ever really cover any of my stuff, which is more like the WordPress business side. Some news topics that I wish all creators would cover. But that's, the point that, I'm trying to make with Imran is I've sort of let that go. I understand that people have, their lanes that they stay in and that they don't subscribe to everybody's stuff. And it is a human thing to be like, these are the things that I'm interested in. These are the people that I'm interested in. Again, Paul Charlton, Imran, a bunch of other guys had their creator channel or creator roundtable. Never got the call. Fine. We move on, right? I think there's a bit of a, especially for creators, like and maybe this is where the issue lies with Imran is he's thinking there's an echo chamber because he's a creator, he's in the space, he's making content, and he's evaluating what's happening with his content, much like I do. I feel like I put out a great piece, a good video, a nice blog post, and I wait for people to share it, and I want to see the impact. It's not so much about the numbers and like the amplification of it. It's much more about like how do people feel about this piece of content that I put out, especially if it's something that I spent a lot of time and effort and energy on. So I think what he's missing, which a lot of us creators do, is does it really matter that the other creators aren't amplifying the content more than the actual audience and the content consumers actually crossing over into different timelines, right? So how many of the folks that listen to my stuff also listen to Imran's stuff or my stuff and Remkus stuff? How about all three, right? I found over the years that I'm a WordPress content fanatic. Like I consume every piece of content that goes out in the WordPress world. I mean, maybe not every, but I watch everybody. That's how I saw Imran's video. It's how I saw Remkus' blog post. And I know those guys don't follow my stuff that closely, and that's okay. I'm in the knowledge business. I need to know these things. I need to know what everyone's thinking and doing for the job that I have at Gravity Forms. I need to know and understand what's happening across the ecosystem for my own work. So I realize I'm a bit of an outlier, but I think that with creators specifically, just by the nature of the business, we have a magnifying glass on what's happening, on who's sharing what content's going out. And it's business at the end of the day. Like we're all looking, at least the creators, they say it or not, whether they say it or not, like they're all looking for that, amplification, feedback, and they want to know that how can I grow my content business? And I'm sure Imran's feeling, the same thing. Otherwise he, wouldn't put out the video. Now that's half of it, which I think he tried to say like, I'm not really thinking that way, but I think you are to a degree. If I'm wrong, maybe he listens to this. I'm not doing this in video. It's just audio. Maybe he listens to this on the Matt Report YouTube channel and leaves a comment or DMs me. The other half though, like once again, like I feel he is doing it much more from the standpoint of, hey, how do we uplift others? But I still wrestle with that because this is something I've heard other content creators say in the past, like, oh, we want to amplify others, we want to do all this stuff. And I never see them really amplify anybody else, short of doing a podcast episode. You maybe call it a collab. Okay, if that's your bar for collaboration and amplification and uplifting others, cool. I've always tried to be as philanthropic as I possibly can be, because I am very fortunate to have a great job at Gravity Forms and still be able to do stuff with the WP Minute, that the WP Minute is not my livelihood. It makes a nice side income, but I also reinvest it back into the business through hiring great folks like Eric Karkovac to write, edit, and produce a lot of what's happening at the WP Minute. I've been working with Bridget Willard for some marketing efforts. I've been working with Raquel, though she doesn't really make any money from me. She is part of the team because we just do this cross collab stuff with her efforts with PressConf. And I've been bringing on some new writers and investing in new writers in an age where everyone's saying that writing's dying because of AI. I also do things like invest in other media brands, right? There's other newsletters that I support that I either pay monetarily to support and advertise, to cross-collab with the WP World, WP Founders, which I take my sponsorship money and give it to them and say, hey, I'll help you, small creator. So these are areas where I've, again, the gloves kind of come off with me. Not that I'm saying anything harsh here, but I am a little bit more unfiltered in the WordPress media stuff because I've been living it for 17, 18 years at this point. And I feel like I try to do things as professional and as business-like as possible, because I do want the WP Minute eventually to run without me just seeped in the business or as the brand. It's why I transitioned from Matt Report, which you're listening to right now, to the WP Minute to make that happen. So anyway, yeah, I get really in the weeds when I hear these things. His the premise is correct. We do want to support others, but how does that happen? And I think thinking diverse, again, he's saying things like we want to bring in other thoughts, but I feel like I don't, and to be honest, I should have said at the outset, I don't know who he's really referring to in this. He says it's not a rant. He doesn't want to call it a rant. It's fine. I've said that too before. He wants to frame it as a lesson or a statement, and that's cool. It's both, in my opinion. This is a rant, right? Whenever you want me to talk about this stuff, it's a rant. So I don't know really what he's talking about, but that diversity of thought is the same thing that I think happens. It's just human nature, where, just like Remkus said, if you are, if you're covering Elementor, Elementor is massive. It's massive. For all the flack that I get. Side note, they are a sponsor of the WP Minute. But I've been saying this for years. You can go back into all of my blog posts, all of my podcast episodes, all of my live streams with Miriam. It is an ecosystem within an ecosystem. When you have 10 million active websites that are just recorded on WordPress.org, never mind everything else that they account for, this is a big player in the CMS space. And it's just a big place to talk about things. And I think what happens is you start leaning into Elementor, and there's a lot of echo chamber in that too. And what'll happen is, as soon as somebody breaks away from Elementor and they have their favorite page builder of choice, well, they kind of feel like I've left Elementor and now I'm going to talk about whatever, Beaver Builder. And I'm going to put out all this content for Beaver Builder and I'm going to focus on that. That's what happens at Gravity Forms. Gravity Forms has a massive third-party ecosystem. A lot of people just do newsletters for Gravity Forms, and that's all they talk about because that's just the nature of the beast. And there was a comment I think I saw in another thread from another popular YouTuber who covers Elementor. Going to forget his name right now, but he mentioned something about open source being this, open source WordPress, it should be this thing where everyone is celebrated. Well, yes, But open source does not mean, and I think maybe this is a touch of what Imran's getting to. Open source WordPress doesn't mean that everyone gets promoted and everyone gets a free pass. I think people are confusing open source WordPress and the open community that we have. Open source WordPress is just a piece of software. And it would do everybody better if they saw that as the utility, right? WordPress is this piece of open source software that everyone sort of just like gives into, or not gives into, but invests into and uplifts and whatever, develops. And it is through that utility that great things can happen. You can make a website, you can make an e-commerce store, you can hack it up and build an app. People can break it apart and learn from it. People can get jobs by being skilled with it. And oh, by the way, there's like this layer of a community on top of that. And it's the open community where that all-inclusiveness sort of exists. I think a lot of people just look at WordPress and go, well, WordPress should include everything. Like, why aren't they, who's they, including everything from Elementor to, Divi to Beaver Builder and like all this other stuff? Like, why don't they include all of this? Well, there is no they, technically. Hell, there's no marketing machine for WordPress. Allegedly, there was a head of YouTube that was supposed to do stuff with WordPress. I mean, talk about an echo chamber. I really haven't seen anything happen with that. Remember, gloves are off when it comes to talking about this WordPress content stuff. And WordPress doesn't owe you anything. You don't actually owe WordPress anything, contrary to popular lawsuits. It is there to exist, whether you invest in it or not. You can take it off the shelf and never give back to it and never give back to the community. But the point is that there is a community that comes together that will enrich your efforts and share your stuff. Now, I get that Imran's saying that it's not happening in the community. What I am trying to illustrate is that I think people should draw the line between what WordPress is as an open source piece of software and what it means to be in an open community. And I think when you can break apart those two in your head, you can make decisions a lot better, I hope. Or you won't get as emotional when these types of things happen. So, in fact, I think that the WordPress community does a great job at bringing in diverse voices and diverse opinions, at least on the technological layer, which is Elementor, Beaver Builder, Divi, Gravity Forms, Gutenberg, all of these different tools, Syed's host range of products, WP Engine's range of products, Automatic's range of products. I think that there is a good current of that happening. I know this feels like I'm beating up on Imran a little bit, but these are things that I have felt over my career in WordPress as well. So I'm just highlighting things that I have felt early on and now I've kind of learned from. But I think a lot of people that feel this way, especially as creators, we're waiting for this to happen for us, where we're not going into these other areas and learning from maybe the people we're accusing of creating an echo chamber, right? Like, to learn from others, you have to go and spend time in that space. When I go to an in-person event like a WordCamp or a press conf, like I try to hang out with Rich Tabor, Nick Diego, dare I say Mike McAllister from Ollie, and kind of learn from these guys, Brian Cords, and just sort of like sit on the fringes and listen in on like what's happening and try to give my 2 cents on like how I see WordPress as I'm just a power user. I'm not a designer or developer. I don't even have anything to debate like an Imran or a Remkus or Kevin Geary, for instance. I don't I don't live in that world. Like, not right now. I'm not like developing websites for people. And if I were to develop websites for people, I would use stock WordPress as much as I possibly could. And if I'm doing some kind of like custom project, like I'm talking about, like if I was like helping somebody get a website started, I would stay stock WordPress as much as possible. If I was running an agency or doing building a website for a client, yeah, I might use Mike's product at Ollie, depending on what I need and if the design fits. If I need something better or more like technical functionality, maybe I lean to a Generate Press to help me, build out those more what I'll call complex pages. But I think the important thing is that people spend time. Like as soon as you feel like, hey, things are pretty clicky over here, I don't really get it, or my stuff's not being shared, I try to see what I possibly could be missing from that point of view. Maybe why they don't include my stuff, or why I might not be, air quotes, allowed to come into the room. And I try to just like look at that and say, okay, maybe what do I have to know in order to just like stand side by side with this person? And maybe Imran has to, do a little bit, more of that. Remkus, again, he's saying like, hey, this is my editorial control over my publication. This is how I want my newsletter to be. And that's totally cool. And it's great because then there's like this delineation of why I want to read his stuff versus why I don't. This might be a great point to plug Pulse WP. PulseWP.cc is a app that I vibe coded, which aggregates 32, 33 WordPress sites via RSS or the WordPress REST API and puts them all on just a single page. It's an RSS reader, but every Monday, a AI agent summarizes what's important in the WordPress landscape and then also makes a podcast episode in my voice. So I'm trying to move in a direction where folks like Imran can potentially get their voice heard as like a creator. Like, how can I highlight certain creators through this AI automation tool? And how can I, serve content consumers in that same fashion? So anyway, just a little plug there for PulseWP.cc. So anyway, do I think at the end of the day that there is this echo chamber inside of WordPress? Probably. I think that few of them are done intentionally. In my 17 years, I can probably count on one hand the amount of creators that I know or membership people that I know that purposely don't include others, just out of the fear that it's competitive and they don't want opinion. Especially obvious in Facebook groups. Like, everyone is so protective over their membership and their members, and whatever. That's a topic for, another podcast. So I did leave a comment on Imran's channel, and I think it first got either blocked by spam because we actually wrote a piece for him, not him specifically, but on the WP Minute, we wrote up a blog post for the top YouTube podcasts, or not YouTube podcasts, but YouTube channels to sponsor, including ours, of course. But Imran was number one. And he never said anything to me, and I don't think I've ever really had a dialogue with him. We just collectively looked at all of these different channels and in terms of like the breadth of content and what we could find in terms of like sponsorship availability, and he was number one on the list. So anyway, I left a comment, and I did tell him that, but I think I got blocked by spam, so I deleted the comment and put the comment back in, but without the link, and we'll see if it does post and he does respond to my comment, because I would love to chat with him and get his thoughts on some of these topics that I put out there today. The WordPress content space is competitive, and a lot of folks get into it at first as a hobby, and it's kind of fun, and they make their own lists, and everyone starts it the same way. Everyone starts it the same way by like subscribing to my newsletter and saying, you know what, Matt's not doing it the way that I would do it. I'm going to start my own. And to me, that's awesome. Start your newsletter, start your podcast, start your YouTube channel, right? Do it all. The challenge is to cultivate that audience and not just simply find a collection of links that are different than mine, but to actually have an opinion. Like to actually write your opinion, share your opinion online. And I think that that's how you forge a reputation, a unique set of content, and how you grow an audience. Like, I don't approach YouTube. I don't approach any of this, which I've talked about in past episodes. Like, I don't approach any of this in some kind of like how to grow my YouTube channel, how to grow my newsletter, how to grow my blog, how to grow my podcast. Like, I'm not researching keywords. I'm not trying to hook you for better or worse. Like, what I'm saying is I have this really strong opinion of somebody who's a power user / agency owner / working at a professional capacity in the WordPress ecosystem, both in a hosting company and a product company, who has talked to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other WordPress professionals over the last 15 years. I have built this sort of opinion and this desire to see like WordPress grow through all of these experiences. That's my angle. Like, I just put it out there, whether you like it or not, whether you like my intros, transitions, makes no difference to me. Like, I am not trying to grow that. I am trying to put out great content, or what I feel is great content of value, of substance that can impact an individual. Whether that's in 30 seconds or 30 minutes, like this podcast episode today. Anyway, love your thoughts. Leave a comment if you're listening to this on YouTube. DM me, email me, hit the contact form. Let me know how you consume WordPress content and if you think there's an echo chamber.